Hey folks, you know I take my trail camera intel pretty seriously. It's a huge part of how I build my hunting strategy, and I'm always looking for gear that just flat out works. Stuff I can rely on. Backed by solid people and the best customer support in the business. That's exactly why I run Tacticam Reveal cell cameras. Whether you're just getting started or you're a full-blown data junkie like me, they've got a camera to fit your budget and your hunting style. My go-to currently is the Reveal 3.0 series with fully integrated GPS. These things are dead simple to set up. Less fiddling, more scouting and hunting. And they run on most major service providers and will automatically connect you to the strongest signal in your area. So no more hiking to the top of a ridge just to realize you've got the wrong service provider. Been there, not fun. Here's the kicker. You don't even need an SD card. That means fewer trips in, less pressure on your spots, and more real-time intel sent straight to your phone. And if you pair it with a Reveal solar panel or a lithium cartridge, you can keep those cameras running longer and spend more time doing what actually matters. Scouting new ground, dialing in a setup, or maybe, just maybe, finally cleaning the garage like you told your wife you would before the season started. Don't just take my word for it. Check out Tacticam Reveal at tacticam.com. Tacticam. Everything you need to take your hunting to the next level. Stay more comfortable, more concealed, and in the stand longer with Oscio gear. Premium camouflage apparel created for bow hunters by bow hunters. Oscio's revolutionary patented camo patterns and innovative features are designed to keep whitetail bow hunters totally invisible and dead quiet. Elevate your game with Oscio. Visit asiogear.com and take 20% off your purchase with code TRUTH20. Welcome to the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast, brought to you by Tacticam Reveal Cellular Cameras. I'm your host, Clint Campbell, and you are listening to episode number 448. Today, I'm joined by Trent Wengerd to talk Type 2 fun and why where you hunt is as important as what you hunt. Stay tuned. All right. What is up, everyone? Happy Wednesday to you. Hope you're doing well. Hope you are feeling fine. Hopefully you had a great 4th of July celebration. Maybe got some beach or lake time, boat time, some time with some family, maybe ate some good barbecue. I just got back from vacation. The family and I headed north. We went to Salem, did some witch trial stuff, which was pretty cool. If you've never been, kind of a cool town to check out that history. People there fully embrace the witch culture. I will say that. So there were plenty of folks walking around that, look witchy for lack of a better way to say it, which was cool to spend some time in. And then we went to Portland, Maine for like 5 days, and it's just a foodie town. My wife and daughter are foodies, so we ate a lot of good food. Did some beach time there, did some lake time there. I was able to go train jiu-jitsu for like 2 days, and otherwise just kind of had a relaxing time. Had a really awesome spot. Wasn't like the best fireworks display I'd ever seen, but it was probably the best seats that I had ever had. There was this bay where we were staying and this kind of grassy area, and they had an orchestra playing, and we went down super early and took a cooler, and they had food trucks there, and and the weather was perfect. It was like 72 degrees, and we were just able to kind of lounge on the grassy hillside the entire day and eat some food, have some beverages, and the fireworks went off like right near where we were at, so we had like the perfect view for it over the water, and it was awesome. But nonetheless, we are home now, and attention is fully shifted now to the whitetail season and kind of doing the final preparations for that, getting everything kind of dialed in, finished fiddling with my gear, built my hunting arrows. So I had my practice arrows that I was shooting with my longbow, and like the setup that I have, not changing anything with that. So went ahead and built and fletched my hunting arrows for the year, so that's all done. And now it's just time to kind of go out and do some glassing and enjoy the rest of the summer before the season kicks off, and we are off to a running start here in just a couple weeks. So with that, we're going to go ahead and just jump into today's show. I have on Trent Wengerd. Trent was actually introduced to me by my buddy Jason Red. Trent is a Boyer, lives in I guess it'd be the eastern part of Montana, kind of really close to, eastern part of Idaho, where really close to Montana, which is where he grew up. And the thing with Trent is that his journey in hunting was, started super early, but his journey in archery started, early, all things considered. He started hunting I think with a traditional bow when he was like 12. He made his first bow when he was 12, and that's kind of where the itch and the bug kind of came from to build bows. And then, things evolved, and he eventually kind of went into building custom bows full time. And of course, he lives in the West, so he's chasing a lot of big critters, and he doesn't chase them exclusively with a bow, but that is kind of his primary weapon. So super cool dude, very talented bow maker, makes a beautiful bow. So unfortunately, I think he's all booked up right now, but it's worth keeping an eye on whenever his bookings open up. If you're interested in getting a custom made bow, he would definitely be one of the guys I would talk to. So with that, we're just going to go ahead and jump into today's show. As always, thank you all for listening. Psych, one quick note to make. Tomorrow, on the 10th of July, I will be releasing the beginning of a 5-episode mini-series that is all about using trail cameras and kind of details how I've used them over the years, a lot of the things that I've learned over the years to make my trail camera use, better, able to use it to, just to become a better woodsman, and not using them so much as a crutch to kind of tell me where to hunt, but tell me the questions I should be asking, so I kind of pick the correct places to hunt, and also how to ask the correct questions to kind of head up an appropriate or effective hunt strategy. And so that's a 5-series episode that'll start coming out on July 10th. And I hope you guys dig it. So now with that, we'll jump into today's episode. And as always, thank you all for listening. All right, folks, welcome back to another episode of the Truth from the Stand Deer Hunting Podcast. And today I got on a gentleman that I was introduced to. Man, Jason Red, he's getting a lot of plugs here on the podcast lately. He's turned me on to 2 different fellows that I've had a chance to talk to, and the second one being Mr. Trent Wengerd. I almost called you Trayson. Mashing up Trent and Jason.
I've been called worse. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you and me both. But how you doing, buddy? How are things?
Good. Just got to spend some time in the mountains this weekend, and getting back out and getting ready to go back to work. So yeah, things are good.
Nice. What was happening in the mountains? Was it just a little 4th of July, extended 4th of July family hangout in the mountains, or anything else?
Yeah, kind of. So my brother, my oldest brother, drew a moose tag in Montana here, just right across the state line. Actually, it's the same tag I had years ago, and he finally got the tag, and so we went back in this one basin that we like to hunt sometimes, and just wanted to go check it out, put some trail cams up. Just kind of hang out a little bit, and came back out today. So
nice.
Yeah.
A little bit of time in the timber is never bad time. So there's never a bad time to do it.
Yeah. No, it
Nice.
was great to get out with them. 2 of my cousins went along, and my nephew went too, and we catching some fish and just hanging out there by the lake. So it's a good time.
Nice.
Sure.
Yeah. Perfect weekend to do it. Did you have good weather too?
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we had some rain earlier, but yesterday and today were hot, almost too hot. but yeah, we're here. So
yeah, nice. So where are you at, man? Are you in Montana or are you in Idaho? I'm trying to remember.
Well, so I would have spent most of my time in Montana, but I actually live on the Idaho side right now.
Okay.
It's Sandpoint, Idaho. We're about 10 miles north of Sandpoint, and so that's about 45 minutes west from where I actually grew up, just into the Montana state line there. Okay. So, yeah.
Gotcha. So you grew up in Montana, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah, just a little town called Heron. Nobody knows where it is. Closest big town would be right here. Like this is where we came to shop. Growing up, you'd drive past Lake Ponderay, come over to Sandpoint, Idaho, and that was kind of our town. So,
right. So orient me, because my Idaho and Montana geography isn't great. Like I've spent some time in both doing some hunting, but never extended time beyond just the hunts and stuff.
Yeah.
And so I know where, like I have a buddy who lives in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I've hunted that general panhandle area. So in relationship to that, where are you at?
So Coeur d'Alene would be 40 minutes south, something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, we're just north from Coeur d'Alene.
Cool.
We're south of Canada, maybe 40 miles. I'm not sure exactly how far it is, but it's not very far up there. So, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, man, I love that part of the country. I'm not going to make it out this year, unfortunately. I didn't try to get a tag this year, an elk tag for Idaho, but a good buddy of mine lives there, and I've been able to go out a couple different years now and chase elk with him, man. And that chasing elk in that timber, dude, is just it's just a different animal. I like challenges, and like a bunch of my buddies were like, man, why do you want to get a tag there?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, my buddy lives there. He's from Pennsylvania. It was one of those things where, when someone moves away, especially if you're moving far away, all your buddies are like, oh yeah, man, I'll come out and hunt with you all the time. Like, oh, for sure, come out, and then of course no one ever does, And so when he was moving, I was like, yeah, man, I'll come out and elk hunt with you, And so I was like, I'm not going to be that friend that says I'm going to go out and elk hunt with you and then not show up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he was new at it, trying to figure it out and stuff too, And so 2 different years, I was like, I went out, usually over his birthday, because his birthday kind of comes in right toward the beginning of elk season.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of cool to spend his birthday in the mountains, backpack in, tent, and do the whole 9 kind of backcountry setup. But that timber's no joke, man. Like,
yeah, no, it's definitely. So when you would come out, was it September, October? Like when were you guys on?
It was the first year I came out, it was for the opener. So I was there for the very end of August into the first week of September.
The archery.
And then, archery. And it was archery the second time too. But that was a little, I feel like I came out around September 11th or 12th, I think is when I got there to start hunting, and then we hunted till like the 19th or 20th or something like that. It was what it was. Yeah, that was better. If I were to do it again, it would be around the same time. The crazy thing was both trips we were in elk both trips. The first trip we were in elk every day. We could hear them and smell them. We just could never see them.
Yeah, that's good.
They were like 40 yards away and couldn't see them. You could hear them kicking rocks and stuff like that. And it's just so thick. And then the second year, we got into an area that had been timbered a bunch and stuff like that. So you could actually glass like certain areas and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And we were on a good bull that we chased for a couple of days. We got close at one point because you could just hear where he was chuckling and just peeing all over the ground, as we were kind of trying to cut the distance and stuff. And then he got into this, just this big drainage, and like you could tell he just lived in there, because he would get in there and he would move up and down it. And so I spent multiple days waiting for him to bugle. He would pipe off, and then I would kind of try to pinpoint where he was at, and then I would run in and try to get close. And I'd want him to pipe off one more time, so I knew like what part of the drainage he was in before I jumped in, so I knew I wasn't above him, so the thermals still weren't falling to him, or if it was later in the morning, I wasn't too far below him for the thermals to rise up and him to catch me.
Yeah.
But he knew what he was doing, man. He would only bugle until about, it got earlier and earlier every morning that he stopped. So at first it was like he would stop around 10, and I'm like, oh, we got plenty of time. And then like the next day it was like, oh, he stopped around 9. It's like, oh no, he's, and then the next day it was like 8:30. It's like, I mean, he did come in. We called him in, and he snuck in on us and was cresting this like steep kind of like bank, and he hadn't bugled for forever. I had no clue he was coming, and I just happened to hear like a rock and like looked, and like I could just see the top of his antlers, and then he smelled us, and like, I mean, he was probably only 15 yards away. We just could never see him because it was just that steep coming down off that embankment that just saw the top of his antlers, and phew, he was gone. I was like, man, it's crazy how quiet an animal of that size can be that quiet when they want to be. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. They make so much racket, but at the same time, if they want to sneak, they can. It's pretty amazing. But the brush bulls are no joke. I mean, it doesn't matter what weapon, what season you're hunting with. It's a tough hunt.
Yeah. I loved it though, man. It was great. It was a couple places I came up out, went into the one spot in the dark, and like was climbing down the side of this thing. I had no real clue how steep it was, just like kind of like almost like rock climbing down the side of it, and then came out like in the daylight, because we hunted that spot till like the afternoon and came out. And I'm looking at it, I'm like, dude, do we come down that? And I could see like the area we came down because the ground was all scuffed. I'm like, dude, we are idiots. Like,
yeah.
I'm like, that is way more sheer than it looked on the map.
Yeah, sure.
But so, man, tell me a little bit about where you grew up. Because you grew up there in Montana, and just I'm assuming I just assume when people grow up in that area, like hunting is just one of those things that it's in your blood. Like it's not even a question of whether or not you're going to do it. It just kind of becomes a natural thing of spending time in the woods pretty much from the time you can walk, I'd imagine.
Yeah, so I wasn't born in Montana, but yeah, when we moved to Montana when I was probably 6, I think. So
Mm.
that was the main, like that's what I remember basically.
Hmm.
But yeah, I grew up in a like everybody in my family hunts except for my mom. I don't think she's ever hunted, but my sisters, my brothers, we all hunt. Dad, he took us hunting, and um, I would say growing up, I think my dad had done some archery hunting when he was in his teens, maybe. But honestly, more gun hunting until my older brothers decided to start picking up a bow, just gonna make the season longer, and catch the elk rut and some stuff like that. They're like, hey, let's give this a go, and so they were getting into it, into more of the archery elk hunting when I was probably like 10, 11, 12. They were really
Hmm.
starting to get into it and actually starting to get elk on the ground. And um, and so um, so yeah, that was kind of how we got started. And every year we would kind of all of us would go out for at least a week or so, and camp and hunt, as just all of us, is just go out and hang out in the woods. um, but yeah, we would definitely, and still do, like we take advantage of all the seasons, but archery elk was kind of the main one that we tried to for sure take the most time for. Um, and yeah, just a matter of getting out there and learning what we could and apply it to the next year. And it's a really long learning curve.
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
but it was a lot of good times. There was
Yeah.
more back when I was that age. There was more elk to chase, for sure. Like you could go out, even say like an hour or two before daylight, and you could go bugle off different points, and you could kind of pick and choose which bull you're going to go after. um and it's not that way anymore, but like that, if we'd have known back then what we know now, it would have been even that much better. But you got to start somewhere, right? So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, everybody has to go through that learning curve. But yeah, it was a good time for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I was talking to a buddy of mine about that. And we weren't talking about regrets necessarily. Well, it was regrets from the standpoint that kind of what you just said, which is that if we knew now, if we knew then what we knew now, we would have done things a little bit differently. Which what we were talking about was more so taking advantage of some of the hunt opportunities that we had, say even like 10 years ago. That
Right.
now for someone in the East, it's much different for us to try to go hunt the West.
Oh yeah, yeah, changed a lot.
Than yeah, than even just 10 years ago. Um, yeah, all that historical knowledge is always 2020, isn't it?
Yeah, no, we think back. We still talk about some of the bulls that we had at least seen and were chasing, and uh, some funny stories too. But yeah, it's just crazy how things have changed. I honestly, we um, we moved to Colorado for about 6 or 7 years, and we moved back in
Mm,
17. And I did want to more just to prove to myself that I could. I wanted to kill an elk in the local area where I grew up again, just to prove to myself I still could.
mhm.
Being gone for a stretch, and I did. I got two of them, like those first 2 years. But after that, I haven't even hunted the local area very much. I did take my son over rifle hunting last fall, and he got his bull over there last fall. But
Nice.
it, for the most part, we don't even hunt that area anymore, because we kind of travel around different parts of the state, and pick out different areas. But it is a really unique area. at this point, there's not as many elk as there used to be, and it's tough hunting. You've been here,
Hmm.
northwest corner of Montana, North Idaho. It's the
Yep.
same thing, and
Yep.
it's a really unique place. And I'm not saying I won't ever hunt it again, but it's not what it once was, and it's in my mind, it's easier just to go go find somewhere else and give it a shot there sometime. But
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's like my buddy who moved there. A lot of the locals, they're like, why don't you go like pick a different unit or whatever? And he's the same way. He's like, I will not leave this spot until I kill an elk local to me, like in my, hometown or in my backyard, like where I live,
yeah,
And it's like, to your point, it's like some of the hardest hunting. It's the hardest hunting I've ever done, like period. Like the only
yeah,
place that like was comparable to it was I was in a section of Alaska and hunting, and even that hunt I think was actually easier than the hunts that I've done in Idaho, just for like the challenge to not just find them, but like to actually see them
yeah,
was the hard part. Like Alaska, I didn't kill anything, but what I was there for, I saw plenty. It wasn't
yeah,
like I didn't have target opportunities. I had plenty of them. They just weren't of the. I was there. I was hunting bears, is what I was hunting, and it was just I had to watch and make sure there wasn't a mom with some cubs, or
right,
whatever, right? And like a couple different times I saw a good bear and had to watch it for a while. And when I watched it, 30 minutes would go by and then like all of a sudden a cub would pop out, right?
hmm yeah,
So, and then the one big boar that I had, it was too close for a little too close for comfort, and it was one of those things where it's like he snuck up on me. I didn't realize he was there. And it was just like, get him out of here. Like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
I didn't have time to think about trying to kill him. It was just more just like, I'm just trying to get out of this spot alive right now.
right, right,
But yeah, there it's like I saw plenty, and like the terrain was rugged, but not nearly as much up down. And that section of Idaho just has so much up down, and it's so thick to
hmm
traverse through that it's a challenge. But he's the same way. He's like, I won't go anywhere else until I kill one here. He's like, and then once I do, he's like, I'll probably never come back.
yeah. No, I'll definitely hunt, especially growing up on the Montana side. I know that area better than I do the Idaho side,
Mm,
and I definitely will hunt that some here and there. But yeah, it's like when I moved to Colorado. I all I knew for the most part was hunting that local area there, and you move to a completely different state, different situation. There's obviously way more hunters in the area that I hunted in Colorado, but there was a lot more elk too.
mm,
And
mm.
so it's like, it kind of like, whoa, I could be, there's probably places like this in Montana too, and it kind of got my wheels spinning. And so that's it's a really cool spot. And there's some gnarly old bulls here too,
Yeah,
um, but yeah, there is. I like checking out new areas now too. That's a lot of fun. So
yeah, yeah. So man, so it said you had two brothers, right?
I've
That
got
you
three, uh, three brothers, two sisters.
okay?
So yeah,
Okay. All the brothers and sisters hunting growing up.
yep, yep.
Yeah. So are they older or younger?
I'm the youngest one. Yeah,
You're the youngest one.
yeah.
Okay. Wow. All right. So what was it? I mean, it has to be a pretty nice. Well, I guess there's probably good and bad with it having older brothers and sisters, right? Like with anything, but from a hunting standpoint, it had to be. I would think it'd be pretty cool to have like older brothers and sisters that hunt that you probably never had lack of a hunting partner to take you out, right? Because like if you think about like, say just like a kid maybe who's dad hunts and that's and dad only has so much time off to try to get the kid out or whatever, right? Can be a challenge, right? And you do it as much as you can, but it still isn't maybe a whole lot of time depending on what their schedule is. But when you have olders and brothers and sisters, especially when you're at an age where they're old enough to kind of drive and go, and you're at an age where it's like I don't really have any responsibilities. I'm still young, but I
Mhm.
can go hunt with them every time they go, and I've got 4 or 5 people to go with, right? Like I got to imagine you were able to tag along a lot, which helped you kind of like learn the things that they were learning at whatever age they were at, say 16, 17, 18, whatever the case was. And then going forward, you were able to see that stuff as you were like 12, 13, 14, right? Do you feel like that gave you, I don't want to say an advantage, but like, you know, do you feel like you shortened your learning curve to a degree just by the fact that you had older siblings that were experiencing those things prior to you?
Yeah, definitely. Because they would have when they started, they would have been completely grained to it and hardly had any mentors. I mean, they would have had some friends that they were learning with. Some, especially my one brother, he would have had a friend that they really hunted a lot there for a stretch, and I definitely learned a lot from them. I would say by I'm not sure what age, but I did hunt as quite a bit by myself, even when I was younger. Like before I was 16, didn't have my driver's license. I would honestly, it wasn't legal for me to drive the car up the mountain, so I would take the tractor and drive up the mountain with the tractor. You know, that's how desperate I was to get out, even if nobody could take me. And so, and that I learned a lot doing that too. And yeah, it was great going out with them, learning from them, but it was also, you know, just getting out any way you can is, you know, you can tell the people that have the fire for it if they make it happen or not. If they, you know, if they're always depending on someone else, it sometimes, you know, do they actually have the drive for it or no? If you have to kind of coax them to go, then sometimes they don't quite have the drive yet. But and I definitely had stretches of that when I was younger where I barely felt like going, like, it looks hopeless. You know, what's the point? But yeah, no, definitely getting out there with my older brothers. I killed my first elk. It was a cow with my one brother. And then, just, I think my dad was there when I killed my first bull. Here, something came up. There we go.
Oh, there you go. There we go.
And just a lot of good memories hunting with family for sure. So
nice.
And then cousins too. I've got a number of cousins that we've definitely done a lot of hunting. We used to get, just for a couple of years, we'd go grab the Idaho tags and hunt the Idaho side some too. And so a lot of time doing that as well. So
nice. It's always good to strike out on your own at some point, you know. Like I think be curious your perspective, you know, because I grew up, I hunted with my dad, you know, and some of my cousins on the one side of the family hunted a lot, but they kind of lived further away from me, so I never grew up really hunting with them. And my cousins that were more local to me didn't really hunt, so it was kind of, and then most of the people in my group of friends that I grew up with didn't really hunt either. I mean, they did, you know, when we were really young, because it was kind of like the natural thing that you do when you were 12 in Pennsylvania, like you started hunting. But most of them quickly kind of fell out of it, and I kind of continued to always hunt. You know, it was just always something that I liked. And so I hunted a fair amount by myself too, because I'd come home from work and we had like a back 40 or whatever. And so I'd just take the gun out after school and go out and hunt. My stepdad tells me stories of him and my uncle Rod taking their shotguns to school with them on the bus. Now think about this, right? Like how much times have changed, right? They would go to the end of the lane in the morning with their, 20 gauge or whatever they were using, take it on the school bus with them, take it to school with them, put it in their locker, leave it in their locker all day, get it out, get back on the school bus with the gun, and have the bus driver drop them off it was probably like a mile and a half or so away from the farm, and then they would bird hunt like all the fields on the way back to the farm after school. Wow. That was
that's amazing.
Yeah. Like how crazy is that to think about that today, right? Like that was you would never happen, right? But yeah, I'm just going back to what you were saying. Like there's a lot of value in kind of striking out on your own. Do you feel like in doing that, do you feel like that was a way that kind of expedited your learning a little bit, maybe more so than having older brothers and sisters that hunted? Like, did you always find maybe more value in kind of learning things on your own versus someone telling you? Because I was hard-headed. Like, you could tell me something all day long, but until I went and did it myself, I wouldn't believe it. So,
Yeah. So I had a hard time consistently getting elk, especially with a bow, until I started really hardcore hunting by myself, and that was around the time I moved to Colorado. Kind of that time frame. Um, but if I personally think if somebody wants to get really good at elk hunting, they're going to be much better off hunting by themselves. And if you have a great partner, that's even better. Like if I go with my older brother or whatever, and then we can get in some really great, like just a couple of years ago, he called in a bull for me, and I'm not used to that. Most of my elk have been when I was by myself, and it's really cool having someone calling elk past you.
Mm-hmm.
But in general, I feel like you're going to be a much better elk hunter if you learn how to do it well solo. If you go out and you're always dependent on someone going with you, it just handicaps you in a lot of ways. And it can be an advantage to have a second person there. But if it's keeping you out of the woods or keeping you out of hunting as hard as you want to, then it's not worth it. You'd be better off hunting
Right.
yourself and just going for it.
So now here's the controversial question: who's the better hunter out of your group, out of your brothers and sisters?
My brothers and sisters,
Yeah.
oh boy, that's a tough one. I
They're going to be a fight at Thanksgiving now, just so.
Yeah, so I'd say out of all my brothers, I probably spend the most time hunting. My oldest brother hunts quite a bit as well. Um, and everybody's kind of got different styles and so on. And some of them, like me and my oldest brother are more into elk. My other brother would be pretty a mix of both, and then I've got one other brother that he pretty much just deer hunts. Like he loves deer hunting. That's his thing, whitetails. And so we all kind of have our own thing we like doing in a way. I mean, we do like some of the same things, but everybody has kind of got their unique flavor. So
Right.
yeah.
Your brother that is into whitetails, is he also in that Montana, Idaho area?
Yeah, he is.
He is?
Yeah.
Because that's unique, right? Like, at least from my perspective, like being from the East, like I don't meet many guys, that live in that area of the country that are big into whitetails. I know one other guy, actually two other guys from Idaho. I wouldn't say both of them are more into whitetail. One of them for sure is like, he's like, give me a big whitetail all day long, every day over hunting elk. He's like, I'd prefer to do that. Prefer to do that.
Sure.
That's how he is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I mean, you guys have some. I mean, Idaho is hard to hunt, but there's some giant whitetails in that part of Idaho.
Yeah, and there's some people. I'm not one of them, but there's some people that really know how to hunt them too. But yeah, he loves whitetail hunting. He's I mean, he'll go years without even hunting elk at all. Now his son's getting old enough now and his son's kind of chomping at do the archery elk thing. So I think I think they might hunt with us some this fall. But yeah, he loves deer hunting. That trips his trigger. And so hey, to me, in my mind, elk is number one. But everybody's different, and they got their thing that they like, and he loves like calling, like doing like the rattling, sequence, and then going, place to place, and rattling and seeing what he can get in. And I've never had a lot of luck rattling. I think I killed one buck that might have come into my rattling. It just came in maybe a while later.
After.
No, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of one of those deals. But no, he has definitely, had good success rattling in deer and, kind of doing kind of different, unique things. And that's kind of more he loves whitetail hunting. So.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm the same way. So I have a buddy that's from like Ohio, and he's all about elk hunting. Like if he could elk hunt every year, he would, if you told him you can only elk hunt every year for like 2 weeks, but you can't whitetail hunt. He'd sign him up for it, right? And he's a buddy of mine who's killed some like giant world class deer, you know. Um, I'm the opposite, where it's like I like elk hunting and I enjoy it. I probably also just as much enjoy it for the experience of being in the mountains and backpacking in and setting up tent like a camp and like being away from everything for a week to 10 days, like critters notwithstanding, that's like, I just enjoy that aspect of it. But I would rather hunt big whitetail somewhere where I can hunt really big whitetail. So like, that's just my preference,
Yeah.
But yeah, everyone has a different thing, I guess, I would say for me, it's like big whitetails in certain environments. I would choose elk probably every other, like outside of the big whitetail states, I'd probably choose elk outside of those, just because, I like to hunt whitetails where I can see them and glass and things like that.
Yeah.
Right. And so as long as I can do that, then I dig it. Elk kind of the same way, where it's like, I want to be able to see them and call to them and like interact with them. And if I can't do that, then it's, I struggle a little bit maybe. Right. Especially as a newer elk hunter, it's like not great at calling, right? Like, have done it a couple years, so still, low on the learning curve. Right.
Yeah.
And so maybe I just haven't had that. I was also kind of ruined for my first trip because I was with a buddy of mine who's really good, and I was hunting with him, and he called an elk in the first year.
Yeah.
And he brought it broadside to me, and it was a tree between he and I, and we were both standing there, and we had agreed, like, whoever gets the shot, take it. Right. And so if it turned right, my right, it was my shot because he was on the opposite side of this down tree that he didn't have a shot. And if it turned left, it was his shot because I couldn't take a shot at that point because the tree was in my way. So that elk basically came in head on, just screaming, and got to like 25 yards and turned his way, and he heart punched it, and we watched it fall over like 40 yards away. Like it was, that was my first trip. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
to me, that's what dreams are made of. And it's interesting too, like seeing with my own kids, their different personalities and what they like doing is totally different too. Like, my oldest likes things hardcore, likes a really hard hunt. If it comes too easily, then it's kind of a downer for him. And then my other son loves to sit on a ridge, glass across with a rifle and hunt that way. Like everybody has their own little unique ways they like doing it. Like me and my older brother, for instance, like me and my oldest brother, we both, I should say almost more than the elk hunting, it's a lot of fun to do like the wilderness type of hunts. I don't do as much of those as I'd like to. I need to do it more, but getting into really unique, there's some backcountry basins in this general area, in this, Idaho, Montana, that you get, it's a lot of effort to get back in there. And we've already done all the effort to get in there, and there's just nothing there. And then sometimes you get there and there's just elk everywhere. They just happen to be there right then. And we've had some, just amazing experiences getting into some of these super, super back end basins. Actually, my nephew killed his first bull on a hunt like that. It was me, my oldest brother, and my nephew. We went in this. It was way back in, and he ended up killing his first bull back in this backcountry basin. And those are just extra special. And even like the place we were moose scouting today, when you draw that tag, it's not a gimme, but you could definitely kill a bull by the road, like not too far off the road if you wanted to. But he's also one of those types that where you hunt puts the hunt on a different level, so to speak. And so that's like, hey, we're going to go back in here 8 miles. We're going to this amazing spot. Actually, my dad killed a moose in this area back in 2009, this same basin. And actually, we walked right past where he killed his bull yesterday. But just a really cool spot. And yeah, he wouldn't have to go put all that effort in to go hunt that spot. But it's it's a once in a lifetime type of tag, and where you hunt kind of can add to the experience big time, you know.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's more what it's about too. So
Yeah, I would agree with that. That where you hunt, I don't know. I would say the environment that you're hunting in has, like, I don't, for me at least, it's 80% of the experience. I would say, just to throw a number on it, because I always said I like to go to the Midwest. I like to go to plain states because I like to spot and stalk whitetails, I like to hunt them from the ground. Like that's
yeah,
just how I kind of like to do it. It's one of my favorite ways to do it. Because I just like to be close. I like to be on their level, you know. And like we were talking before we started recording, whitetails are skittish, right? And so they're challenged to get close to, and you know, spooky and all those things. And someone asked me one day, they said, you know, do you think you like hunting those places because the deer are bigger? And I was like, well, that's just kind of a bonus. I said, if I could hunt deer that were that caliber in my home state, or I could go to that plain state and hunt the same caliber deer that I have in Pennsylvania, I said, I would still go to the plain state and hunt smaller deer. I said,
yeah,
just because of the style that I get to hunt. You know, I was like, in the scenery that I get to see. I was like, and some of it might be because I grew up in this area and I grew up not with mountains that you're used to, right? But I grew up in Pennsylvania mountains and stuff like that. And so this is very normal for me. And when I go somewhere where there's nothing, and I'm like, how am I going to sneak up on a whitetail here? You know, like that.
yeah,
Like I get excited about that, you know. I was like, so for me, it's definitely the place, you know, more so than the critter, or I shouldn't say the critter. It's more so the place than the caliber
yeah.
of the critter.
Do you decoy deer in? Like you sneak up,
Yes.
pop up a decoy, or how
So yeah, I've used the decoy. The first year I used it, didn't have a whole lot of success with it.
okay,
The second year I didn't even use one, and then the third year I went back, and I decoyed one in, but it wasn't one that I wanted to shoot, and I got him to within 5 yards. Like he was, I mean, I could see the freaking valves in his nose closing. Like it was that close, like as he's breathing, you know what I mean?
yeah,
I don't know if they're called valves or whatever, but you know how like when a dog breathes or whatever, you can kind of see like flaps close up
yeah,
or whatever. It was kind of like that. But you could definitely hear that, like that's how close he was. I could have reached out and grabbed him. Like he was that
wow,
close.
that's amazing.
Yeah. It was pretty wild. Like I had seen him from, I don't know, probably 60 yards away. And I started using this decoy that I had built, that a buddy of mine, Travis Glassman, kind of built it. And I just mimicked. I don't want to take any credit for it because I literally mimicked what he had done, you know, and I talked to him about how he was using it and stuff, and built the same exact thing that he had. And I was curious. So I gave him a call the one day and said, man, I feel like I'm out in the wide open. I mean, I'm in the wide open country. I was like, but I feel like with this decoy, like I feel like I'm still like bare naked, you know, that they're going to see me. Because there's, you know, I got a heads up decoy essentially that I put on a stake that would be a plastic fence stake that has a metal post on it, so I could stick it on the ground, right? And I could turn it if I need to. And I was like, and I'm completely in the open, like to draw or anything. And he was like, Clint, he's like, I don't know what it is. He's like, but man, he's been using it for years and he's killed giants with it. He said, I don't know if it's because they expect to see movement around the deer, that they just associate it with that it's the deer's body or another deer around it, or what. He is like, but I've had deer so close to me and I've fully drawn on them, and that wasn't like they even knew I was there. He's like, they just get so fixated on the decoy that you can get away with murder. And so I was on a really big deer that year. I ended up killing that deer later that afternoon. Or the big deer that I was on, I ended up killing that one later in the afternoon. And so I was kind of just testing the decoy to see how much I could get away with before I screwed it up on a bigger deer, you know?
Yeah.
And so I saw him at 60 yards and I gave him like a little snort wheeze and I flashed the decoy to him and he came up and he just kept working his way in. And I kept moving the decoy and was kind of behind it and stuck it in the ground. And when he got close, he got to about, I don't know, at that point, probably like 7-8 yards. Like he could see me. There was no doubt. And I drew on him just to make sure I could draw, like to see what I could get away with. And he finally like saw me. I mean, he was dead for 20 seconds, you know what I mean? Before he ever like realized what was going on. And then he jumped, and he only jumped maybe 5 yards away. So like, even when he was spooked and moved, he was still only probably 13, 14 yards away from me. And
Wow.
then he stood there and just kind of like was like doing that, like, what the heck is going on? And then he didn't even run away. He just walked away.
Wow.
Like, that was it.
A lot of fun. Is it kind of like elk hunting? Like elk hunting, you have to sometimes get kind of in their bubble before the calling, works. Is that kind of with the decoy? Do you have to be within a certain distance, kind of more or less, or will they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like decoying in general, like I'm not an expert at it, of course. I've only been able to do it a little bit, but and from talking to buddies that have, it's more of a you have to have the deer that's in the right kind of frame of mind, or like has the right personality or attitude. And then I think also it works to your benefit if you are inside that bubble where it's like,
Yeah.
I'm already so close, like I kind of got to go check it out,
Yeah.
type of thing. Because I think some of them, unless you get one that's just aggressive, that wants to throw down, if you flash and it's kind of far away, that one, it might commit to you, right? But I've also had deer, that I've flashed. It was one right before that I called to and I flashed a decoy to, and he ran out of there like he was shot out of a cannon, and that deer was, probably like 130 some odd inches or whatever, and he took off. But that's also what told me that the deer that I was on, I thought he was bigger, like significantly bigger, and he was. And so I was like, he must have been run off before, by that other deer. And so he was like, yeah, I don't need any of that smoke again, and took off. So, but yeah, short answer is like, I think best case scenario is like you're close enough that they, that you've already kind of infiltrated like their safe zone, and they kind of have to check it out.
Yeah. And is that with does, or can they be by themselves?
So with does, I've never had any luck like getting them to commit like off of does. Yeah. And now, to be fair, it's like I was probably on the fringe of being close enough, but not quite there. The year prior to that, the year prior to killing that big one, I guess it was, I was on another big deer in the same area, and I had seen that deer two different times. One time when I was able to call to him and flash a decoy to him, and I was probably 100 yards away from him, like roughly, and he wasn't interested in the least. I mean, he postured up and looked at me and looked in my direction or whatever, and then he just went back to doing what he was doing, and then the does were moving away. I think the other thing too with does, especially that time of year, like the rut, I think they get a little spooky when there's more bucks that start to show up or whatever. They're like, great, now I got 5 that want to chase me, which isn't great for me, And so I think when they see them, I think they just get a little weird. They prefer to be left alone, And so I think whenever you start playing with that stuff, it kind of puts them a little bit on edge.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That sounds like a blast. But whitetails are amazing. Like where all they live. Like I've already been out in the mountains around here, and you see a mountain goat, and up above the mountain goat is a whitetail. Like it's the places you'll find them. It's just
That's wild.
It's a crazy animal. They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're so freaking adaptable. You can drop them off pretty much anywhere, and they figure out a way to make it.
Yeah.
But so, man, you had mentioned earlier, you started off kind of gun hunting or whatever, and then your brothers got into archery, and it's kind of, what got you into archery to a degree. But what was it about archery that kind of, because one thing your brothers are doing, you're kind of interested in it or whatever the case is, but then you kind of make the full switch to that away from gun hunting overall, especially at a young age, man. Like you're 12, right? When you started, like, am I correct? And you were 12 when you started hunting with a bow?
Yeah. So, and to be clear, to this day, I still hunt with a gun sometimes. So it's not like I'm bow only. But, yeah. So, my dad always had like the little kids' bows around. So from like my earliest memories, we always had bows. Just the tiny little white glass bows. We had some white ones, and we had a little bit bigger one that was red. And I don't know why, but I was always out shooting these little bows. I showed enough interest in it that my grandpa sent me home with a bear grizzly that he had gotten for my uncle and my dad when they were in their teens. Um, Actually, I think my uncle might have killed his first deer with that bow. But anyway, he sent me home with that bow, and I used it for a while, and then at some point I was gonna give it back to him, and he told me, no, just keep it. And so anyway, I still have that bow. Um, but yeah, for some reason the bow always really intrigued me. I had when I was 12, I bought a boy, I don't even remember the name of it. Was it a Martin Cougar or something,
Mm.
compound, like a youth
Mm.
compound? And I hunted with that bow that one fall, but I didn't get any shots at anything. But then a few months later, when I was 12, I started building laminated longbows and recurves, and that was in large part to my dad. I showed a little bit of interest, and he told me to kind of figure out what I needed to get started. And so he bought what I needed, and basically it was like a kit that came with the necessary wood and glass and blueprints and instructional pamphlet on how to make your heat box and your form and everything. And that's how I made my first couple bows starting at age 12. Um, and I wasn't going to hunt with them. I thought, and it was more my dad. He was like, these compounds, I don't know, I think I'd rather have a recurve. It honestly, in my mind, I was like, that's too much. Like it looks like fun. Like I like shooting a recurve, but I don't think hunting with one is my jam. But then obviously I build one, and I was like, oh, dude, I got to go hunting with this. Yeah, I built,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and so and I honestly, that's all I've hunted with since. As far as bows go. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, my dad had a huge part in that, in getting that started. If it wasn't for him, definitely wouldn't have got that going. Um,
Right.
and yeah, so that's how that got started. So.
Man, that's wild, dude. Building a bow at 12.
Yeah, well, it looks horrible. I pull it once in a while. I've even shot it some here and there, and it's rough. It looks horrible.
Yeah. Hey, we all got to start somewhere, though, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, so what made you want to like start? 'Cause I don't know any other. I personally don't know any other 12-year-old who's like, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to build a bow. Like when I was growing up, it never crossed my mind. Like I like shooting bows. I like shooting guns and shooting bows and doing all kinds of stuff outside. But it never occurred to me that like, hey, maybe I should build one of these. No, even as a guitar player and a musician growing up, it never crossed my mind like, yeah, you know what? I should build a guitar. Like never, it never happened.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why. There's been times in my life where I almost didn't like this about myself in some ways, but I for some reason liked to try to make it myself for whatever reason. I don't know why, but I was always kind of messing around with whatever. My dad had a woodworking shop, and so I had access to a lot of tools. And I just got a kick out of just making things from a young age, and I don't necessarily know why, because like you said, not everybody's like that. I've definitely seen other kids like that too, here and there, but yeah, I don't know what makes. I guess it's a personality thing. No idea why. No idea.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I got into it, and it just never left, I guess. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. Now I like to tinker and make things, and I like to do DIY stuff, but I don't have very good mechanical skills. So anything I do is just like, it'll work, but it doesn't look good. It's like I built the travel trailer that I hunt out of, and I gutted that and, put solar in it and like propane heater and, whatever. It does everything I need it to do. I always like to say it has everything I need and nothing I don't, and that's about it. But man, so, you did that as a kid, and you hunted with that first bow, how do you get from that? Like, what was the inspiration to kind of go from that? And like, obviously you love hunting, you love archery. Like, how do you go from that to like, what was the inspiration or the catalyst to be like, you know what, I'm going to start building bows. Like that's going to be my thing. That's what I'm going to do.
Yeah. So when I was younger, 12, 13, 14, 15, I was like, man, this is what I'm going to do. Like I'm going to build bows for a living. And honestly, kind of crunching the numbers the best way I knew how. Obviously, at that age, maybe I wasn't the greatest at it, but I started to realize when I got a little bit older that it might not be the greatest path as far as like making money.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, I had a few other jobs. I worked for my brother. I've pretty much always been like self-employed but like kind of working for someone, but technically self-employed.
Mm-hmm.
And in Colorado, I had a really unique job, got to do a lot of different unique things there. And when we moved back up to Montana, I was like, I kind of came to the point where it's like, if I'm ever going to make a jump and do bows full time, if I don't do it right now, I probably won't ever do it. I might say that I'm going to do it, but I'm probably going to get kind of roped into doing something, and I'll just kind of keep humdrumming with that. I'm never actually going to give it a try. And I didn't want to it was in there enough to where I knew if I got older and I look back on my life and I didn't do it, I would have always wondered kind of what if.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd rather not live with what ifs. And so,
Yeah.
you know what? If I'm ever going to make a go of it, right now is the time. Jump into it. And I still had I talked to a few other bowyers, and that kind of helped me kind of see how it would work out. And then I also it's still wondering if it would for sure pay the bills was still a concern. I did there was a quote that Jason Harrison I don't even know where I saw it, and I don't even remember the quote exactly, but it was he said something like, if you are passionate about what you do, you'll be in the top 5%. Doesn't matter the industry, the top 5% always will make enough money. It was something to that effect. I wish to find that quote. And so honestly, that just here, obviously he's a very successful guy. He did some things that some people were like, "Wow, no, it's a saturated market. You can't do this. Oh, people won't buy that." But he was passionate about it, and he made two big iconic brands, and it kind of made me stop and think a little bit. It's like, you know what? I don't know of anybody that's more like, that's all I not literally, but that's about all I think and talk about is like, man, building bows, bow hunting, that kind of thing. I was like, if anybody's passionate about it, I definitely am. So I might as well.
So it's one of those things where it's like, why not me, right?
Yeah, why not just give it a go? And if it doesn't work, and that's the other thing. I knew I had lots of things I could fall back to. If it didn't work, I knew I had other options. And that's a big deal, especially if you got little kids. Everything.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a pretty big deal. And I knew I had a handful of people I could call and have a job pretty quick doing something,
Right.
And I was like, hey, not everybody is fortunate to have that. I definitely did. And that was a big part in being like, you know what, now's the time. So, and I'm glad I did. It took off way faster than I thought it would. So,
nice.
It was, I'm very glad we did that. So, yeah.
Nice. So what was like, how did you develop your craft? Right. Cause just like anything, when you jump in and you start, you're not as refined as you are as you get further along in your career or your craft or whatever the case is. Right. So how did you continue to kind of learn the craft and develop, your skills and yourself as a bowyer?
Are you talking like before I started full time or?
Yeah. Just before you started full time, and then just even now, like, I'm sure like you're passionate about it. So I'm sure you're always kind of investigating like what what can I tweak? How can I do things differently? What's
Yeah.
what's the innovation that's coming along that I need to be aware of or think about or whatever the case
Yeah.
is?
Yeah. So I'd say one benefit I had is I really enjoyed prototyping. I loved changing stuff up and seeing what happened. And so I started designing my own bows at I think it was 14. I started doing all my own bow designs, and by 14 or 15, the only bows I built from then on was only bows that I designed. Um, and those first designs were horrible. Like they're horrible. But I learned a lot. I would do something. I would change the form, build another one, see what difference it made, and I'd build another one. Like I had one form, I changed it probably. I tried to count. It was around 20 times I changed this one form till finally I was like, well, I need to build another form because it's getting so it's still getting cut
Right.
so much. I can't use this form anymore. But um, what that did is just, in ages, 14, 15, 16, 17, like in that time frame, I had done so much prototyping and so much changing uh, limb designs and just messing with stuff that I got a good grasp on what happens when you change certain parts of the limb or whatever, how that's actually look when it's strung up, what it's going to do to smoothness or speed or whatever. I had done enough prototyping at that point that when I went and I'll also, I'd look at a bow and be like, if I was somebody that wanted to get into a recurve, would I want to buy this? If it was sitting on the shelf next to XYZ, would I actually want to buy this? And I'd be looking at it, be like, you know what? No, I wouldn't. I'd rather have that. That looks cooler. Just looking at it. So okay, well, I gotta work on getting on my finished work. I gotta work on that way I shape it, and that's kind of how I thought. Would I buy it if it was set up next to? It's like I'm not going to be happy until, in my mind, like if that's the bow I would want.
Right.
And so that was kind of my mindset going into it. And then when I went full time, I tried, I knew my weakness is to have too many options and do too many things. And so I tried to, okay, I'm going to do like a takedown recurve. That's going to be my thing. And I'm not going to offer some of this other stuff. I can't help myself. I
Yeah.
even I have less time to prototype if I'm doing this full time, but I still just can't help myself. I got to put this out or do this or, give the customer some options that they would probably honestly be happier if they had less options. But,
Right.
I had in my head that I was only going to do, like, say, the Ibex recurve in 2 or 3 different riser options and that one limb. And that was going to be my thing. I was going to dial that in. And I prototyped that over the course of maybe 2 years. And then, before I went full time. And then I built that. And I was really happy with that bow. But I think 2021, I was like, I think I could make a few things better. So I changed it all up. And then around that, 2020-ish time frame, I had started um, designing a new limb. And in the meantime, I had a 3-piece longbow added, and then I changed that longbow design. And so I've got the newer version, and then I had the 1-piece longbow in there as well. And I kind of did what I told myself I wasn't gonna do, have all bow options. But it's kind of hard when your customers, in a way, some of them especially, they're almost like your buddies. You talk on the phone or whatever, and they're like, oh man, I'd really like this, or have you ever built this? And it's like, yeah, I have. You just end up building it and doing it.
Well,
So
it's like you know where those guys are at as far as you're an archer, right, and a hunter, and you know what it's like whenever when you think of, I'm going to get a new bow and man, I really want to do this,
Yeah.
like there's part of you that like, it's like, I get it. Like
Yeah.
I'd want to do that too. Let's do it. It's like, that sounds like a great idea. It sounds super cool.
Yeah, exactly. Like when I got into it, I started building recurves. That was my thing at first, was recurves. And then I got into the little hybrid longbows. And that was honestly for the most of that time, that was what I was into, is the little tiny one piece longbows. And then I started making a 3-piece longbow, and then I added a recurve limb to that riser. And then after that, I started working on the Ibex riser, probably in like 2015 or something. But my longest stretch was like I had a thing for that little 1-piece hybrid longbow. They're really snappy, super lightweight, snappy little bows, And but I honestly shelved that because I was kind of getting more into the 3-piece recurves personally. That's kind of what I was wanting to shoot. And still, that's kind of my main thing. I like the recurves. I do want to hunt with my little longbows again some more. I haven't done that in a while, but it's just hard to beat a nice recurve with a little bit of mass weight to it. It's for my go-to bow. That's right. Is the main thing. But it is fun to play around with some of this other stuff too. And so I get it. When guys are like, "Oh, and do you build this, or have you ever built this?" I'm like, yeah, I used to build those.
Right.
So if okay, I'll bring it back. So
nice. That's awesome. Well, I mean, I think that's, when you find people who are, I think almost in any creative space, when you find people who are truly kind of invested in like whatever the craft is, it's like, it's hard for them to say no to interesting things or unique things or whatever. Cause like part of it is that you just want to explore. It's the same thing as hunting. It's the same thing. Like when you talk about, you wouldn't have to walk 40 miles back to that basin, however far it is. Right. But when you get there, it's cool, and it's a great experience. And so it's kind of the same way when you're making stuff, when you're creating, it's like, there'd be a lot easier or faster ways to do it, or different approaches, or I could say no because it would take me a minute to figure this out or whatever the case is. But, where's the fun in that?
If I could, and maybe I could, I don't know. If I could do nothing but just mess around with different bow designs and just sell whatever I make, that would honestly be, what I tell people is my hobby is designing bows, but my job is building bows. Right. So if I could design and just try out all kinds of stuff, I love doing that. But I can't help myself but do it here and there. But boy, it does not pay the bills, so careful how much. Sometimes I'm like, okay, for the rest of this year, I cannot do any more prototyping. Like I can't touch anything else. And so there's definitely times I have to like kind of hold myself back from trying something else. But I've always got other ideas that are in the head that I just haven't had time to get to yet. So
yeah, it's funny because whenever I was playing music and stuff, that was my preferred thing, was like the creative part of it was being in the studio, writing, recording. Like that was what I loved to do. And playing out was just, gigs and stuff was really the thing we had to do because the band had bills to pay and the band had to make money to pay the bills. And that was how the band made the money to pay the bills, was to go play shows, like, so it was a similar thing in that way, where I was way content just to be in the creative process all the time, woodshedding, you come up with ideas and stuff like that. But, the band wasn't going to last very long if we didn't have some form of income to pay our bills and stuff. But so man, I want to shift gears here for a second and get back to talking a little bit of hunting, and I think you kind of hit on this earlier, but we talked a good bit about elk hunting, but I know you've hunted a ton of other critters, right? I saw, like, I think your son just killed a goat, if I'm not mistaken, too long ago, and things of that nature. So I'm curious, I'm gonna exclude elk because I think that your answer is elk. But what is your favorite animal to hunt? Like if you had to only pick one animal, and let's say you can't pick elk this time, what would be your second favorite to hunt?
Ooh. Um, if like the once in a lifetime tag type of thing is in play, I would say probably mountain goat. I love hunting mountain goat.
Hmm.
I want to get a sheep in the worst way. Always have. But as far as like the actual hunt itself, mountain goat is just a blast. But if I did like a year to year thing, and I had to pick something that wasn't elk, because that is 100% archery elk is all the way. That's what I like doing. But if I had to pick like a regular tag, November mule deer is a lot of fun. I don't know what exactly I would pick, but I love getting in some of these backcountry basins and hunting muleys in the late season. That is a lot of fun. And honestly, right now um, that's mostly right now. I've never done that with a bow. That's always been rifle hunting. Um, and honestly, some of these rifle hunts are harder than some of the archery hunts I've been on. So it all depends on the area and where you're going, what you're doing. But some of those late season mule deer hunts are just amazing. And I haven't done it as much as I like. I definitely get out there at least some every year to go do it at least a little bit. And because I've got kids, I want to try to take hunting, and that's mostly whitetail. Um, that we kind of focus on the kids,
Hmm.
but yeah, the mule deer is hard to beat. So
What's a what is it? So going back to that once in a lifetime deal or a goat hunt. What is it about the goat hunt that you like?
um, so the probably the number one thing is where you're hunting them. Just that alpine type of country. It's amazing. I love that. I love that type of hunt. The other part of it is, and my view might be a little bit jaded. So I did draw a sheep tag in Colorado years ago. It was I had a few guys tell me to just turn the tag back in because it's a horrible unit.
Hmm.
um, so and the sheep herd was down about half of what it was at one time, and it was like a 30-day season. We had some crazy stuff happen right before this hunt, and I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to go hunting, but I did. We were able to work it out, and I went hunting. I spent 21 days in there, and it was it was an amazing hunt. Like when I think of elk hunting, it's like a type 2 fun. A lot of deer hunting is a lot easier, and it's just fun. But like the elk hunting, in the middle of it, sometimes it just is miserable. But at the end of the year, the elk hunt is what you're looking back to and being like, oh yeah, like I can't wait for next year. That's
Hmm.
kind of what, in a way, the sheep hunting, at least that hunt, that's the only sheep hunt I was ever on. Um, it was hard. It was the hardest hunt I've ever been on. Um, it was mostly solo, and you'd sometimes go a few days without seeing any sheep at all. And when you would see one, they might be a mile and a half away. It seemed a lot of times they're like a mile and a half away, and then you'd get over there and they were like they're disappeared, like they're gone. It was an extreme type 2 fun, and I realized that unit was there's a lot there's a lot of units that have a lot more sheep in it than that one did. um,
Right.
but I love that hunt. I would, if I could go back, I would. Like that is I would
Hmm.
love to do that again. But as far as like a fun hunt, the goat hunting takes you kind of the same types of areas, but they're just easier to find, if that makes any sense. And
Hmm.
um, you get out. especially if it starts getting a little bit colder. If you got the sun hitting, like the first place the sun hits the mountains, you're watching for the goats to be standing out there in the sun, and you just, they're easier to spot. There's more of them. There's, like with sheep, it's a lot more like, is this big enough? Is it a giant one? Whatever. With goats, it's a lot more like, they all kind of look the same, so you kind of get that initial excitement, just finding it, and then it's I don't know how to explain it, but like, it combines, like, just, it's easier to find the animals, but you're in that alpine environment. Like, the country is amazing. The animal itself it's just a really unique animal, and it's just a lot of fun hunting them.
Right.
Obviously, gotten to do it a few times. I've been a part of, one, two, three, four or five goat hunts. Four of them would have been archery. One my own, one my son's, then my oldest brother, and my cousin. Um, and It's just a lot of fun. Like, it's just a
Nice.
great. Um, Whereas the sheep, you can grind out. You'll be sitting on the mountain for days sometimes and not even see them. Sometimes, at least the unit I was in. Like I said, that's a little bit of a jaded view because that
Right.
wasn't a good unit. Um, but yeah, I want a sheep in the worst way. But as far as fun, I'd say goats up there for sure. So
Nice. So what's on your docket for this upcoming season? What do you have? Any good hunts planned?
yeah, yeah, we're really excited about this fall. So the last 2 years, my oldest son, drew once in a lifetime tags here in Idaho. He drew a moose tag, and then he drew a goat tag this last year. And like you had mentioned, he got his goat with the recurve, and when, back before the hunt, he said, "Yeah, I kind of want to go kill it with my bow." And I was like, "Okay, well, if we're going to do that, we need to hunt in September." And you know what that means, right? Like, it's going to take away our elk season. And he's like, it's going to be worth it, once a lifetime tag. And so, we got to hunt elk in Idaho here like 2.5 days. So it really bit into our season. And we had an amazing 2.5 days, but still, like, we just didn't get the elk hunting in like we normally do. And at the end of it, he was like, I'm glad we did that. But Dad, I miss elk hunting. I can't wait for next year we can actually go elk hunting. So that's kind of my feeling too. It's like, these special tags are awesome, and I'd never trade them for anything. But man, we're looking forward to getting out chasing some elk for sure. So yeah, that's
Nice.
that's kind of this year.
Nice.
We
Heck yeah,
didn't
man.
draw any special tags like that, and so it's our standard, just, our general tags that we normally get.
Right. Nice. Heck yeah, dude. It always feels good when we kind of get back to a little bit of normalcy, and get back to your old stomping grounds and chasing elk and,
Yeah, for
or
sure.
whatever your normal, season looks like. But man, I've kept you captive here for a little over an hour, man. I want to be sensitive to your time. I know you got a lot of work to do, and we're time difference here, so I know it's, still earlier in your day. But before I let you get out of here, I want to give you a chance to kind of let people know where they can find out more about you, where they can find out more about the bows that you build, and where they can, and where and how they can get in contact with you if they'd like to.
Yeah. So, right now, well, I've got a website. I need to do some more updating on it. It's a little out of date, but I do have a website, wengerdarchery.com. I've got an Instagram. If you look up Trent Wengerd, it should come up. I think my handle is Wengerd Boyer. Um, I would say for right now, like, I'm not currently accepting custom orders at the moment. I've got enough of a backlog. I'm trying to get all the way caught up. So if somebody's looking to order a bow right now, I'm not really taking orders at the moment. But once I'm all the way caught up, I plan to open that up, and I'll probably more open it up in sections to where, like, I don't want it to get out years ahead like it had been before. I'd rather kind of maybe just open it up, maybe do less customs than I used to and more stock bows, but we'll get that all ironed out once I'm ready to go. But so yeah, for the time being, I'm not taking any more custom orders until I'm caught up with everybody that's on the list currently. So I hope that doesn't disappoint people too much. But if you are looking for one of my bows, I do have a stock bow page that I do occasionally put a bow on. It depends on the time of year and if I miss weight on a limb or something or whatever. But sometimes I do post up a bow on there. But I'd say that'd be the best way to get a hold of one right now, or a used one, I guess. I don't know where to look for those, but yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now. So.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck to you this coming season. Enjoy your elk season, and I hope you get a big one. And maybe one of these days I'll make it back out to your neck of the woods, and we'll hit you up and let you know.
That would be great. No, it was great talking to you, Clint. Thanks for the invite, and yeah, you take care. If you come back this way and you want to stop in, just let me know.
All right, folks, that is a wrap for today's show. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. And if you haven't yet, please head over to iTunes and leave us a 5-star rating. And be sure to subscribe to the podcast. And hell, while you're at it, head over to YouTube and give us a sub there too. I'd be super appreciative if you do those couple things for me. And before I shut this thing down, I need to give a big shout out to our partners who continue to help us make this podcast possible. Tacticam, Osseo Gear, Hawk Optics, Face Off E-Bikes, and Lathrop & Sons Boot Company. And until next time, we'll see y'all.